Good evening again. Gonna try something different here. Move the whiteboard sideways, see how it works out. Okay, uh, for this segment, what I'd like to do is to talk about a little bit about business. Uh, Now, there is little, if any, business in tier one and two. However, I know some of you are. Let me adjust this a bit. See how that is. Okay, yeah, it's not bad. Okay, some of you have done some side work, I'm sure, and unless you like buying everything cash, you should know a little bit about setting up an account. Now, most of you, if not all of you, have a credit card. So you're a little bit, you are pretty familiar with how that works. The billing period is always a month, and you get your statement at a certain time, and then you pay it off by, I guess, the end of the month, and that's fine, no interest. The credit cards don't seem to mind if you carries some a balance. In fact, they're pretty. I think they're pretty happy as long as you're paying at least the interest part, minimum balance as they call it. You pay the minimum balance, it'll probably never get paid off, and I'm sure they make a lot of money on that. Now, supply houses are quite different. Most of the supply houses are either one of a one store or maybe a half a dozen, like Robinson and Plumber's Supply. Simons, I think, has a couple of stores, but they're pretty small operations. They do not like you to be late. They hate it when you're late. Okay. And as an incentive, they give you a bonus if you pay early. We'll get into that. So, what are you going to do? Now, one thing to remember, and I'm not telling you to, not encouraging you to go out and do moonlighting and break the law. In fact, I never do that. If you do, that's your business. But remember, you can do heat, hot water heat, with no license. You just got to be careful, the tie-ins, the gas, excuse me, the domestic water, makeup water, or if you've got a tankless, you're technically not supposed to do that. But for the majority of it, I would say at least 90% of the heating system you can legally do with no permit in Massachusetts, right? And I'm sure you're aware of that. Well pumps, same thing. In fact, there's no restriction on well pumps. You can bring that right into the house. Um, as an inspector, if I knew that the well pump guy had done the expansion tank in the basement, I wouldn't get too excited about it. Um, it's kind of like the transition place, like a meter. Everything on the house side of that expansion tank, with above the shutoff and the drain, should have a drain there. Then I'm going to be looking for the plumber to have done it. But you guys want to make a good day's pay, and I know we talked about this. The well pump is the way to go. Okay, so let's say you do want to set up an account. What do you do? Well, when my time came to do that, I'm trying to think if I was in business. Yeah, I think it was just before I went into business. And what I did is I went to each of the supply houses, and this is how you do it. You could call them and tell them what you have in mind, and they'll probably set up a face-to-face meeting with the manager or whoever he or she designates to interview you, right? And you show up and you sit down with them and you tell them what you have in mind and what your background is and so on. Now, I was fortunate that my father, who had the same name, had, at the time I went into business, had been in business himself for about 25 years. And believe it or not, he was never late paying his bill. He always paid it early, so he always got like a bonus. So he had a very good record with the supply houses, and that didn't hurt me getting set up. But what they'll do is this: they'll talk to you about setting up an account, and they'll give you, just like your credit card. You might start out with a few $1,000s worth of credit, and they told me right to my face. I could think of one of them in particular. Said, "We'll see how you do with it. Give you a couple of thousand. We'll, front you a couple of thousand. Today that'd be a little more. It might be more like 5,000, and we'll see how you handle it. As time goes by, if you can handle that, we'll up the limit." I said, "Okay." And the question that, of course, you might be thinking is, what happens if that limit is less than the price of the material to do a whole job? We'll say some expensive plumbing fixtures or expensive heating system. They'll deal with that on a one-time basis. Okay. So don't worry about that. So that's how you get started. And remember, for those of you who are at the point where, especially tier two guys who have been in the trade a while, might have been in the trade for several years before you even got registered, you could easily go and start working tomorrow, doing at least the heating and the well pump. If you want to do any plumbing, again, that's your business. But if you go to the supply house, remember when you sit down with them, what they're going to be looking for is what kind of person you are. Their size, every moment that you are there, they're sizing you up, right? And a good interviewer will get you relaxed. They don't want you on edge, and they want you to be relaxed. They're not going to try to maybe trick you. They shouldn't. But to see who you really are you worth them fronting several $1,000s of their money and paying it back? So don't forget that when you go for an interview, whether it's a job or even for an account like this, that's what they're looking at, right? They just don't give you a like a credit card where you can just sign up like by mail and they'll give you so much, so much money um, uh, to borrow. Really, you're borrowing it and it's due every month. I mean, they're happy when you don't pay it. As long as you're paying that minimum payment, they're okay with it. Like I said, supply house is way different. Now, one thing about the supply house, beside that, is this. Hold on a second. I just have to write something down. Okay, I don't want this thing to run over. Uh, when you set up a supply house, you don't go from the 1st to the 30th like you would think. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a couple of months down here and show you how a typical month runs in the supply house business. Let's do this. We're going to do July. Okay, sorry, I should have drawn that in advance. Okay, here's what we're doing. Just quick calendar up here. July has 31 days, as does August. September has 30. So we got July 1st to the 31st right here. Like that. In August, we have the 1st to the 31st. And same with September. We got the 1st, in this case, to the 30th. And October, we're not going to really need. So let's do this. Let's go back to July. And we're going to do some work. Big plumbing job. Now you set up your account and you've been paying your bills. Your customers have been good. You've been getting your bills out and the money's been coming in. Everything's been pretty good. Okay, now you got a chance to do a big job. And we'll say it's within the limit of your account. So what you do is to take a look at the date. We'll say it's July 8th, right here. Okay, on July 8th, you need some material shipped. And remember now, the billing period, which I should have done first, the billing period runs from the 26th of the month before, right? Let's do this. All right, this is where it ends. This is where the month ends right here. Now, I think everybody is aware of the, so we don't need this. So let's get rid of it. Right, we'll keep this clean. But you know that this beginning of July, end of July, or the beginning of August, end of August. So we'll get rid of the dates. We all know where the months begin and end. But the billing period, I'll put it down here, is the 26th to the 25th of the next month. Like this, here and here, right? All right. And then it starts again right here. So this is really the dates you're interested in. So this one here would be the 26th to, I'll put it up on top here. And then the 26th, okay? And so on. Those are the dates you need to know. Your own credit card, it's going to be the 1st and the 31st or 30th. Okay, for us, so back it up about a week. And what you have is a billing period that you got to pay attention to. If you're off by a day, it can cost you quite a bit of money. So we'll say on July 8th, you need this material. So here's what happens. If you needed that material closer to here, right, over here somewhere, we'll say the 23rd, what's going to happen is 2 or 3 days after you get the material, the billing period ends and you get a bill. Okay. So what happens is that material is due no later than the 25th of the next month. So it's just like a credit card. It's a 30-day window. That's okay. But here's what you like to do. Let's take this one out for a minute. All right. So instead of July 8th, that's not really a good date. Let's say the material you need is going to be at the end of the month, right here. This would be June. So right here, we'll say on the 28th, you had all the materials shipped to the job that you need. We'll say it was a heating job, right? Where the majority of it is shipped at the same time. So you get all the material going to the job, most of it, right? The boiler, the baseboard, or the radiant tubing, whatever you're using. And obviously, you got to consider security. Don't get lax on that. I've heard some horror stories of stuff, tools being locked in really secure places, things being stolen. So pay attention to where you're working. Okay, in any case, you have all the materials sent on this date. Now look how far you can go before that billing period ends. You go almost a month, right to the 25th. And that's the day the account, the month closes, right? So you had a whole month to use their money in the form of material. Okay, on the 25th, billing period closes, and around the 1st, you get the bill in the mail. And you have until the 25th of this month to pay it. So take a look. You've got from the 28th to the 25th. That's 8 weeks. Almost 2 months. That's good business. On the 25th, right, that money is due. Right? Now, here's what you can do. Here's where you can make some money. Let's go back. On the 28th of June, you had the material sent. The terms that you set up with your customer, right? You have one of those contracts, those boilerplate contracts, and you can fill in the details. There's several lines where you can fill in, or you can have one made up with your company logo on it. And for heating, what I'd recommend is half up front, because you got so much money tied up in the material, and half at the finish. Right? If you can get a little bit in between, good for you. But that's pretty much how I remember working it. Okay, so on the 28th, it's delivered, and I get a check from the owner. Okay? Now I got at least half my money to start. So what happens during this time? We'll say it takes me a week to get the material in and to do the job. It shouldn't take you more than a week. Okay, the job is done. We'll say somewhere around the very beginning of July, July 5th. Okay, and the customer pays you, pretty quick. We'll say within a week. So you have your money about right here, about the middle of July. You get the money in your pocket. Okay, and the bill comes out at the end of the month. You get it around the 1st. Now, here's what I didn't tell you. Right here. This is the 10th of the month. The 10th of July, right? Which is exactly a month and a half since you got the material. If you pay by the 10th, in other words, you pay early, not the 25th, you pay 15 days early, they'll throw you 2%. For you, 2%. So how's that work? Let's say this material happened to be $10,000. On the 10th, you paid it off. You waited till the 10th. You can pay a little sooner, but it doesn't make any difference. So on that date, you paid $10,000. Because you paid early, you get 2% off that, right? So it's 2%. It's going to be $200. That's you. In your pocket. Now, does it matter if you bought stuff on clearance, closeout? You bought a lot of copper tubing or a lot of PEX tubing maybe these days on sale, or no, it doesn't make any difference. It applies to anything you buy. So if your bill was $10,000 and you paid it early by the 10th, they all work the same way. You get this money. Now, I use 2% because, one, it's easier and it's the bigger amount. I think some suppliers use 1.5%. It's been so long since I bought that kind of volume where it made a difference. Right, at the level I buy at now, 2% is not a big deal. But even 1.5%, this still would be $150. Now, I think these days there's some jobs that go far beyond this number here. So for you to run a tight business operation, you can make this kind of money. It's not a fortune, but better here than in somebody else's pocket. Now, let's say you missed this date. Your customer doesn't have the final payment. You can't pay it early. As long as you pay by this date here, right here, this is the 25th. Right? This would be the 25th. It's okay. Not smiling, but you don't know anything extra. All right, let's say that this customer was a problem and didn't pay you that last payment. All you got was the first one. You got to live on something, and you just don't have the $10,000 that you can spare. Right? As soon as you go by this date here, the next day, this right here goes up to 10, goes 2% in the wrong direction. Okay? So now you're looking at minus 2%. So take a close look. Between the 10th of the month, right here, and the 26th, 2 weeks and 2 days later, you're out $400 right out of your pocket. And I can assure you, I have to confess, it's happened to me a few times when I just forgot about paying the bill. If it was a small bill, they'll call you. How you doing? Good. Hey, could use a check. I forgot about it. Okay. Well, in my case, it was usually a small amount because I haven't really been in business for years, but I do remember these days. I don't remember if I got a call for a big amount. I don't think so, but I might have. But I do know they call even for a small amount. All right. So, meanwhile, now this is you. You're not happy. right? You counted on getting paid on time, you didn't, and now you got a problem, right? You're going to be short $400. Now here's the problem. Once you get to the end of the month, the end of September over here, 30 days later, this number goes up to 10.4. Okay, it's 2% a month, and it's compounded monthly. So this number here is actually 2,400 and a few dollars. Okay, it might be like $8 or something, but we'll just call it 400. So that's every month that you're not paying the bill, it's adding $200 to that account. Meanwhile, at some point, this supplier will cut you off. Now you're really out of luck, especially if you've been dealing with them exclusively, almost exclusively for all your material. Here's what to do. Somewhere in here, before it gets to be a big problem and they start threatening, sit down with them, work something out. Okay, I've heard one way you can work it out is to close this account, freeze it, and you pay it back a couple $100 a month, and they'll open another account. It's kind of like a head game, but it works. I've heard it works. I haven't done that, but I've heard that was one way they can handle it. You don't want to get kicked out. It's going to hurt your credit for one thing. So as hard as it is to go and face them and tell them you got a problem, it's better than to just disappear, because that's very expensive. When you disappear, then you're going to have credit problems, which is very hard when you have business. Okay, so here's how it works. The billing period goes from the 26th to the 25th of the next month. Now, I think Robinson might be a couple days before that, but they're all roughly right around that, give or take a day. But I think it's 26th to the 25th. Okay, and the bills come out a few days later. It's like a credit card. But notice how you can use their money, and they don't mind. I mean, they're well aware of this, right? Get the material delivered right after the billing period starts, like here, if you can. Now, sometimes you got to start over here. That's the way it goes, right? You can't stall a couple of days until here. Now, there was a time before the computers where they could like put it in a drawer and hide the slip, date it ahead. There was a few games they could play. I remember doing that back in like the 70s. But those days are over. So try to stall and start here if you can. You get an extra month, almost a month worth of free material, and then pay it off by the 10th. So you had the use of their material for over a month, and you're paying them early. You save $200. Okay, that's how it works. But each supply house requires a visit, right? If you open an account at one, of course, it doesn't carry over to the other unless it's a plumber's supply in Fall River, and you go into the one in New Bedford or where else are they? I think they're out on the island, wherever they are. Yeah, that's right. They're down in Middletown. An account with one company covers all of their branches. Right? Of course, that's not a big deal. So there's the way you open up your credit. And again, if you got any question on it, save it for when we go live sometime. All right, I'd be happy to answer it. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we still got a little time left here. All right, now talking about accounts. That is by far the most common way to do business, but there's a few slightly different ways. Cash, I'm not going to talk about. We all know what cash is. And also, now this is being taped, and I don't want to go on tape talking anything but positive thoughts about any business. However, my advice to all of you is to support your local supply houses, right? Don't go to the chain stores. Let's just leave it there. Chain stores, be careful. One, they can be very expensive, especially when you buy individual fittings. And the other is the quality. Again, I'm going to be tap dancing carefully here. the quality of what some of the chain stores sell versus what our suppliers. When I say our suppliers, I'm talking Simon's, Plumbers, was it Southeast Supply, which came into business after I was kind of gone. Uh, Robinson, all right, they're our supply houses, and I've never heard them say it, but I know it happens because I've talked to people that work for these other stores. There is two different um, grades of what you think is the same thing. Be careful. All right, now these other stores, other than our local suppliers, they're okay after hours. That's what they're good for. They're good for Sunday, Saturday afternoon time. Most of them, our suppliers are closed very early. You need something like before 7 or 7:30 when your supply is open. You can go to some of these stores and they are open earlier, but just get what you need. Okay, enough said. And when you want to send your customers to look at material, send them to your supplier and let the supplier know they're coming, right? So they're not giving them a price that you want to be fair with everybody, but just let your supplier know what's going on, right? And then when you send a customer to your supplier, I don't do it much now. Like my daughter maybe needs something, I'll call. If it's easier for her to pick it up and just tell them she's on the way down. Same thing with you. Let them know that you got a customer coming in so they can take care of it. Okay. And the last one, this one is I did this. I was in business full time for about 8 years before I became a teacher. And in 8 years, this happened to me twice. So if you guys ever go into business, I'm sure it'll happen to you. You're working out of town, all right? Not local. Local, we're not talking about. Local, I mean anytime you're within, say, 30 minutes of Florida being the center, 30 minutes in any direction, or even maybe even 45. That's local. When you're going further out, like an hour out, you're towards Boston, down the Cape, something like that. In fact, that's where it happened to me both times. It was some suburb of Boston. It was about an hour, and I used to live in Little Compton, about an hour and a half from my home, and it was somewhere off of 128, going up on 128. I can't remember now what town. Anyway, uh, I knew that I was going to be doing a new house, and you know how it goes. You're all of a sudden you run across something you didn't expect, or you out of a fitting you thought you had, or something like that. Well, I'm not going to drive back to the city. And sometimes you can't wait till the next day because whatever it is you need will mean that you're going to have to stop for the day. So I found a supply house. The name escapes me now. And I think I might have asked around and found out there was a supply house nearby. And I went to see them and I did just what I told you, sat down with somebody and told him that, and I was honest. I wasn't trying to scam the guy. I said, I'd like to set up an account. I'm doing a new house and I'll be here for, on and off for a couple months, whatever it was. And I was wondering if I could open up a temporary account now. And he said, yeah. He said, sure. He said, where are you from? I told him. He said, you have an account at Cochran's, which is where Southeast Supply is. So any plumber in Florida at that time would have had an account there, just like Plumber Supply or Robinson. I said, yeah. Now, that meant that he could call Cochran, his contact over there, and check me out by phone. He doesn't even have to bother wasting his time with me and see what kind of person I've been as far as paying my bills, uh, my worth the risk. Now, obviously, if I was a problem, they would have told him. And he said, we have I guess you could call it like a reciprocal arrangement. So guys coming from up that way down here, they would deal with Cochran. Cochran, the guys from this area would deal with that company, but he would send the bill through Cochran. So what would happen is at the end of the month, I got a slip from Cochran's for this supply house, which was very interesting. And it was noted on there what it was for. And so that's another one. So I would call that one a temporary account. That was the best. Now, the second best, I was working down at the canal in Bourne doing a very small medical center. It was really only the size of like two houses put together. And quite a bit of material, a lot of underground. and there's a supply house. Name gets away from me now. It's been almost 40 years. I went in there. They're maybe 10 minutes from my job. They're not too far from the canal, and on the other side of the canal, on this side, the supply house on Route 6. And I went in, told him the story, and he said, "Yeah, we could do that. We could do business." So now, did he check on me with my supplies? I don't know. He didn't. He didn't advertise it. He knew I was where I was working. Told him the story, and what he did is to set up an account. And what I did. Now this is going back to 1983, 84. So this was probably like maybe three times that would be today, but it was $500. Consider that more like 1,500. And what I would do is I would go in there for nickel dime stuff. I mean, it was close enough that I could blow over there at lunchtime and pick up a handful of things that I needed. This job I did need more than the house. This one was a commercial, a lot of underground pipe. And I'd go over there, get this, that, and the other. And when I got down to about maybe 100, $150, we had a limit. What he would do is he would notify me. They'd tell me, hey, how about another check? And would kick it back up. It worked great. Very smooth. It never held me back. I got my price. And at the end of the job, I went in, told him it's done. It's inspected. In other words, I'm out of here. Gave me a check for the balance of what was on the books with them. Handshake. See you later. Okay, so that's another way to do a temporary job out of town. Okay, so you're not waiting until the next day to get it from your supplier. Also, if you're going to get it from your supplier, most of these away games you want to leave the town or the city very early to get there, right? So how are you going to do that? You can't get to your supplier; they don't open until usually 7:30. By then, you want to be like on your way down there or pretty much on the job. So this temporary account works pretty good. And the last one, I almost forgot about this. I was doing some work in Providence. I was in Little Compton at the time, and it was smaller work for a very well-to-do. In fact, I still see ads for him on TV. Lawyer, and there was a little supply house at the end of Route 6, small supply house, and I told him what the deal was, and they had like an account, but I paid every time I went in, but I did get my price. All right, that was the third choice, I would call it. This being the middle one. The best one was by far the one where they just bill it through my other supply house. But this was pretty good. Okay, so you're doing a away game. Like I said, I did 2 of these in 8 years, so I'm sure some of you guys are going to be doing that. But nothing you probably want to get involved with now, right? You don't want to be traveling when you don't have to. So why did you travel in the first place? You guys that do travel, sometimes your boss is working for a contractor who occasionally gets something out of the area. Most likely he doesn't like traveling either. Maybe a friend or a relative or some reason why he's got to travel to get to a job that he normally wouldn't take. But when you're just doing moonlighting work, you wouldn't probably take something like that anyway. Okay. Let's see. We're just about running out of time. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the billing, not the billing, excuse me. Oh, the last thing I'll say about the billing is get your bills out promptly. Now, my father advised me about this, and he was good. He was good with his paperwork, better than I was. And get your bills out fast. If you're working like a crazy man, doing 10, 12, 14-hour days, 6 days a week, sometimes you come home, you don't want to do the bills. The problem is this: when you get the bill out 3, 4 weeks after you did the job, they're not going to be rushing to reach for their checkbook to take care of you. Right? If you took 3 or 4 weeks, you can wait a while. Now, if you get the bill out right away, chances are you're going to get paid sooner. Now, I didn't do a survey on it, but it was my experience, and my father told me the same thing. To do that, get the bills out, and the money comes in faster. Also, they're more appreciative, especially if you bailed them out or you really took care of them and it worked out well. After a while, things kind of fade. That favor you did or whatever the job was, they don't remember it as well. And you're going to have to wait, even if you need the money badly. So get your bills out quickly. And charging for estimates and that. I'm going to leave that with for another night. Okay, we're getting up over 35 minutes. I don't want to go any more than that. Okay, this is it for the videos for the night. What I'd like you to do is, and you'll get the copy. I'm going to have my tech support send you a page 9. I think it's page 10. The next page on the question sheets, and check it out. Now, here's the deal. If I don't tell you when we go live, this page also has the pages wrong. So your job, this is very unusual, but it's going to work pretty good. I want you to look up the right page. So when you see the answer on page, I think it's 10, you're going to see the answer, the section, and the page. The page is wrong. I'll tell you right now, the page will be wrong, be off by roughly 20. I checked one of them on this page. I didn't do the whole page, and it was off. But the section will send you to the right place, and then you can change the page. So that's your job, and that shows that you went to the right page and you found this. Also, what I would do is most of the questions on these sheets are questions that were probably used on, I know some of them, a lot of them are used on exams, and I would highlight these questions in the book, right? Don't highlight the whole page because then you just got a yellow page. Just highlight where these questions are, okay? And that way, when you're fanning these pages, looking for things, looking for what to study for your license, it's there. Okay, that is it. I will see you. I guess you're probably seeing this video after we already had our on camera. So in any case, if I don't see you, I'll talk to you before. Have a good holiday, and I'll see you on a week. Oh no, I'll take that back. Take this back. I'll see you Wednesday, right? We got one more class. Okay, see you Wednesday.